Welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. It's so warm in the studio because of global warming. We're all going to die. Well, if you take World War III bubbling in the Middle East, and you also take the fears about ChatGPT and AI colluding to make a mass extinction event, and you take global warming, like if you really measure all three of them together, none of them are great. But I have to say, if I have to choose one way to perish, I'm going to go with global warming. And here's why. And this is not, it may seem like it, but this is not my hot take. It's just something that I think about quite often. When you think about going on vacation, do you think about going to the coldest place on Earth and wrapping yourself in a cocoon of North Face gear on the side of a windy mountain? Very few people think about that. Some do. For some, mountaineering, mountain climbing, snowboarding, it's all the rage, and it's very attractive. I would say that the number of people who fantasize about freezing cold vacations, it might be in the low single digits in terms of a percentage, and that's totally fine. But for the rest of us, we literally try to find the hottest places in the world because if you go to the Maldives or the Seychelles or the beautiful islands of Hawaii or the Caribbean, wherever you go that's closest to the equator, they have functioning economies. Now, granted, they have weather events that unfortunately wipe out entire island swaths in one fell swoop. But for the rest of the time, you go there, people are pretty happy. They've got smiles on their faces. They're gainfully employed. They are indulging people when they are on honeymoons or anniversary trips or family reunions. And people are, by and large, having a pretty great time. So the idea that being too hot is going to be the end of us all, when are you in the best shape of the year? Bikini season. So if you know that you are going to hibernate into a cavern of your own chub and simple carbohydrates for several months at a time, you let yourself go. You have the extra coffee cake muffin at Starbucks. You splurge on the snowman cookie because, in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, I'll work it off on the treadmill sometime in July or January rather. But when May, June roll around, you want to make sure you don't have a bunch of rolls on your body. And the only way to do that is to have the accountability of very little clothing. So the hotter it gets, the hotter we will be. So if we are working out and getting in bikini shape year round so we can be in bikinis and Speedos year round, then guess what? That is going to reduce our collective BMI. That means less heart disease. That means less diabetes. A lot of people worry about doing a fall marathon. New York City Marathon's coming up next week. People are worried about that because they don't want to run a race in cold weather. It's much worse to be hyperthermic. I mean, that's what you dread. If you're in a hot race, guess what? Slow down, have some Gatorade, put a little ice in your hat, maybe some ice chunks in your sports bra. It cools you right down. You can get through a race like that. But when your core body temperature drops and you're shivering and hypothermic, you're being carted off in an ambulance. So if it is warmer, if we are wearing less clothing, we're going to want to look as sexy as possible. And that means we're going to be working out, we're going to be eating more salads, and the planet may actually be healthier. Human beings may be healthier if they're forced to walk around half naked the entire year. And then, look at Halloween. Halloween, depending on where you grew up. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Always a crapshoot. You always had to have water-resistant costumes or at least walk around in a see-through trash bag in case it was pissing rain and raining cats and dogs all at the same time, which, is the deluge you get in the Pacific Northwest. Same on the East Coast. Same in the upper Midwest. You never know what you're getting. But if it's warm, imagine how many slutty nurses and slutty firefighters we could finally have parading throughout the entire continental U.S. and especially Alaska if we have global warming. It may not be ideal, but I have a feeling if people are outside more in their skivvies, if they're sweating balls year round, they're going to look around and go, oh, you know what? I should trim my hedges. You know what? I should go for a dip in the river. This river is dirty. I'm going to write a letter to my city council to make sure that they clean up this river. And then that is the kind of necessity we all need to mother us in order to invent technology that actually saves the planet. So maybe we should bring on global warming and really warm the globe so we can warm our globes in the beautiful warm sun, because that seems like a much more ideal environment for human beings than to be in a frozen tundra. I did it! I saved the world by destroying it! This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.
Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.